Hello and welcome to the Full FX Unfiltered. My name is Colin Lambert. I'm publisher of the Full FX, and I'm delighted to be joined by Antony Brocksom, who is Global Head of Sales and New business.
Yeah, at FXSpotStream.
No, I get that one wrong. Never mind. But this is why it's unfiltered, everybody. Yeah, I can't say a simple name. Great to see you, Antony.
Thank you, Colin. Great to see you too.
I'd like to sort of go into some of the story behind FXSpotStream of the last couple of years, because if I'm being honest, my thought in 2023 was, okay, it's kind of found its level.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, it's a good level, but volumes have kicked on again.
Yes.
What have been the drivers for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there were a couple of things. I think 2023 for us was a very interesting year. Alan left the service at the start of the year. There was the well-publicised dalliance, if we call it, with a brokerage model.
And I can only apologise.
Which obviously was well reported at the time. Yeah. And I think we learnt a few things about our clients, about our service, about our liquidity providers. And I think ultimately, if you're there as a low-cost solution and you change away from a model that people like, the subscription model, and you go to a full bro model, there's going to be an impact. Yes. And I think there was certainly a number of LPs, I think, looked at us and said, right, we're going to maybe just see how this one develops and we'll put things on hold. And as a result, last year was a little bit of a strange year. So I think what happened very quickly, the feedback that we had from liquidity providers was, look, the subscription model, it works for us. We like it. It helps us build. We realise you guys have got to grow, but to change it would be a major step. So Tom came in as our interim CEO, did a fantastic job. Tom sort of spoke to the clients, spoke to liquidity providers. And I think the ones...
He even spoke to me at one
He even spoke to you. Spoke to everyone. He was everywhere. His air miles last year were fantastic. So he went around the globe. I think one of the, certainly one of the silver linings that came out of those conversations, clients came to us as well as LPs who weren't on the service and said, okay, the subscription model's great, but when you're starting out on FSS, having a big subscription amount from day one, it's quite a hard thing to manage, right?
And it's quite intimidating.
It's quite intimidating. Yeah. It's a big number. How do we know we're going to get there? We're a fully disclosed service. We don't really disclose a lot of information up front. Yeah. So, so that was interesting. And the clients came to us and said, look, we do want to see some new LPs. There are LPs that we'd like to see, in particular specialists in certain currencies, and if you can sort of grow that, that will work for us. You're meant to be our one-stop shop. So there are certainly LPs out there that we'd like you to speak to. So Tom looked at this. We sat down as a management team and we came up with a new model. The new model was a choice, really. You've got the subscription, it's still there, but now you've got a brokerage model, and the LPs have choice. That's the key thing. They can choose which model they want to be on. We had 15 liquidity providers last year. Credit Suisse, we know what happened to them. So 14 liquidity providers. Of those 14, 13 of them are still subscription LPs. So this was the thing, it's well liked. However, what it has done is open the door to new liquidity providers and
made that onboarding process easier, maybe.
Absolutely.
The decision making.
NatWest and Wells have joined us, both hit the ground running. We speak about why those volumes have changed this year. I think we had the momentum this year. So Wells came on and NatWest both came on at the start of the year. The other interesting thing was we've always had a good pipeline. There's always been about 40, 50 names globally on our pipeline that we're speaking to at various stages of onboarding. All of a sudden, a number of those popped at the start of the year and they came on and ramped up quickly. So we had our existing client base growing, very popular with the systematics. When we work for them, every time a new PM comes on board, we're an option for them. They like it, they like us, it works. But these new clients who came on also hit the ground running, so we had some big clients coming in and 2 new LPs started trading as well. So all of those factors helped us. And then, of course, there's the market. I think it's been an up year for most. We've probably outperformed year on year, but it's been an up year for most. So there's certainly that factor as well. It's a good year for FX. Bad year for other things, but a good year for FX.
and it kind of demonstrates to me, isn't that always a story with FX? It strikes me as well that the new LPs are a clear source of growth. Yes, markets are busier. Is there, a reasonable threshold at which adding LPs becomes trickier?
I think there is. I think, back in my days, I was in PB, and you used to have, I dealt with the things like EBS Direct, Reuters Prime. And I remember Reuters Prime had 500 LPs, I think they published, and we had to do the credit with all of them. It was a real pain. And how much did we do with 485 of those LPs, probably negligible amounts, right? There was certainly need for them, the regionals.
Beyond the specialists.
Beyond the specialists, absolutely. And I think we are a fully disclosed service. So you're right that our clients don't necessarily, there's some segments of our clients who do, but a lot of them, they have a number of LPs, they're comfortable with that number of LPs, they manage that relationship. So new LPs coming on board, one of the things that we're working with as we've grown, they're not necessarily going to be straight in with certain clients. They've got to bring something a little bit different. And so that's the challenge. We try and be very open with our LPs when we're having these conversations. Will we keep adding LPs at this rate? I don't think so. Is the answer.
I mean, is that differentiator you're looking for as simple as regional specialists, like specialists in a certain currency? For instance, just the week we're recording this, in fact, I think today, you've announced ANZ.
Exactly, a prime example.
As your first Australian bank, so I 100% get that one. Is it really a question of making sure they have a geographical advantage or a currency advantage?
You know what? I tend to be even simpler than that. We go to the clients and we say, who would you like to see on the service? Maybe who have you got elsewhere who's meaningful for you that we should be having a conversation with? And
do the clients ever talk to you about non-bank firms?
They do, and that's a continuing conversation that we're having.
Delicately put, I would say,
It's a continuing conversation. There are criteria for all the banks that come on board. So there's challenges, but that is a continuing conversation. But absolutely, our clients will say to us, these are the LPs that we would be interested in adding, and we tend to go and have conversations with them. And if it makes sense for all parties, we're able to progress. And ANZ's a prime example. We've actually had a lot of clients very excited about having the first Australian bank on the service and getting Aussie dollar pricing, and Asian deliverable pricing from a specialist bank. It makes sense to them.
Yeah, oh no, absolutely. And I guess the other thing that's interested me is, I like bringing this up because I think I wrote this many years ago and I've been proved right. I know it doesn't happen often, but because I've got one right, I keep on coming back
to it.
That's the
one.
Exactly. The growth of bilateral, or the sustainability of bilateral trade. It strikes me that people still want that disclosed bilateral.
Obviously
channel.
It's our service. That's our, that's our core product. That disclosed relationship. Why does it work? From our client's perspective, they know who they're trading with. They have an open dialogue with them, and it has to be an open dialogue on both sides. The client has to be open about how they expect to trade. You can't say I'm going to be doing single ticket and then sweeping the book, right? But it works both ways. The banks are open about the liquidity that they're going to put them on.
Surely they just say, I'm going to do everything.
I'm going to do everything. Some of them do.
So, if I feel like sweeping, I'm sweeping.
And I think, but as long as the client's open with the LP, I'm going to be sweeping the book, this size, it's a good conversation, and they will set them up accordingly. And when there's market events, as we've seen so often, it's you want to be able to pick up the phone to someone who you're, going back to that point about meaningful LPs, you want to be a meaningful client to that LP as well. You want to be able to call them when there's something going on and have that conversation. And we've benefited from a lot of growth, but ultimately, we're the technology solution. The relationship always remains between the LP and the client. And we don't try and get in the middle of that. We help where we needed, but really that's their conversation.
I mean, if you thought the non-bank question is tricky, you wait for this one. Because obviously, you're talking there about being a technology provider, and I totally understand it. The relationship is between buy side and sell side. You're the facilitator of that. You are doing a lot more non-spot. Your growth in non-spot is actually quite impressive. We can get to that in just a second. Which just screams three letters at me, MTF.
Yes.
Does this become a bigger part of your conversations down the line?
It does. It's I think what our legal counsel do spend a lot of time looking at every regulatory update that comes through the door.
And I'm sure the bills are lovely.
It's good to keep people busy. Especially the legal team. I think that inevitably there's a movement towards becoming an MTF for a lot of people in our space.
This is not an FXSpotStream thing. This is
absolutely.
I think there's a growth in bilateral trading across the industry, and it's sustainable. But I think the MTF question, you are one of many firms.
It becomes more relevant, and I think this is the challenge that you have. Of course, there is how do you're from our perspective, we are a technology provider. We don't do matching on the service. So we've always been. We've always been quite clear with the regulators, this is how we perform, but the regulators have I think they've looked to ensure that certain products are in scope, and that's going to continue. So you've got to do your planning, and I think the MTF conversation is absolutely one that's happening.
Yeah. So therefore, I just teased it, I guess. Spot, obviously we get. Yeah. We can see your growth pattern in spot, and it is still growing. But obviously, a lot of the growth you've been having is non-spot.
It is.
How does that sort of pan out around NDFs and swaps and outright?
NDFs, I think, we've had NDFs on the service a long time. It's been a product available for 4 years. And again, we are there to facilitate our liquidity providers' ability to trade with their clients. And NDFs, it's been a hot topic, if you like, for many years now. It's been a hot topic. I'd say not every client, most clients who come on board, when they talk about our capabilities, NDFs comes up. I think most people look at the spreads on an NDF and they think, this could be a product that I can actually make money in.
Until they all get through that door and then spreads do that and we can't make any money.
When they get there and try and trade at 2 in the morning, and there's no liquidity, that's another problem. But the NDFs has been a big growth story for us. And I think it matches the wider the business generally. I think G10, it's a hard thing to trade, we know, depending where you are in the FX ecosystem. But the NDFs, we've definitely got growth. So our growth this year, we're up, it's 6 record, I don't want to go too much, we've had 6 record months this year. We've had record days in every record volume in every product we trade. But in particular, NDFs is the standout. We're up 200% year on year.
But I still have to make the point, 200% from not a lot is not a lot.
Yeah, so we're doing about 3 yards.
Okay, fair enough.
3 yards a day. It's a reasonable amount of
We
NDFs.
like context.
Exactly. And so, like our spot product, our core product, something we still feel we're very good at, and I think we're one of the biggest spot traders on the street in our space. We're up about 32% there. Swaps is up about 100%. But spot is still around 80% of our numbers. So to put it into context, NDFs is around 3% of that number.
So in terms of growth, what comes next? Are we looking at selective growth around LPs, which to your point will be slower? Is it additional products?
Yeah, well, here I'll touch on our new CEO, Jeff. Jeff's come in. He's got the Midas touch. He joined at the start of the year. It's just been all up.
Jeff, it was all about you. Don't worry about it. I know.
Thank you, Jeff.
I know he's.
So Jeff's brings. The great thing about having Jeff on board, he brings a fresh perspective to the company. We're as you know, Alan was our former CEO, Tom interim CEO. There's a lot of FSS lifers. We're not a particularly old company, but we've been there a long time. So we've looked at FSS and we know FSS, but we don't necessarily have the bigger picture. So Jeff has come in and said, right, where can we add value for the banks, and where can we add value for the clients? So new LPs is one of the areas we look at, and I think it will be a selective growth of new LPs for sure. But we're looking at a couple of other things. I can't really talk about them, unfortunately, because they're hopefully very soon. Because they're going through, the business case, the approval.
There's nothing wrong with good teams, okay? There's nothing wrong with good
exactly.
teams.
Exactly. Watch the space. So there is a couple of projects, fairly major projects we've got coming on board, and I think that's where we know that if this year's proved anything, and it could all change next year, but the core product works at FSS. It works well. It's well liked by the clients, the LPs, users, and we work well with them. But you can't stand still in this space, right? There's a lot of other companies out there, new companies, new entrants, relatively new entrants who want to, get some of that share. We found out last year having a pure API business is not necessarily a sticky business. No. You've obviously got to have great client service. You've got to bring all the other factors to play. But if the costs, put you out of the league of everyone else, that will hit you, and you're gonna lose volume. So it's really about making sure we're relevant, continuing to grow elsewhere. Yeah.
Well, a big boo and a hiss from the audience for not revealing what you're doing, but we understand that. Great to talk to you as ever, Antony.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you for having me.
And thanks everyone for watching. We'll be back again soon.